There's a silence that lives in fathers. It's not loud, it's not even noticeable most days. It's just there, like the echo of a bedtime story you used to read every night long after the child has stopped asking. My name is Peter Langston. I'm 64, retired from architecture, widowed 11 years now, and until 3 months ago, I believed I was a good father, a decent man, the kind of dad who showed up, paid his dues, and kept his word. Turns out, none of that buys you loyalty. Not even love, especially not from your own daughter. I bought Claire her dream home 2 years ago. A custom-built modern craftsman in the suburbs of Boston. 3 stories, open beams, stone fireplace. It was the kind of house she used to circle in magazines when she was 13, pointing at kitchens with marble islands and saying, "That's the kind of place I'll cook in one day, Daddy." I remember those magazine pages. I saved them, actually, put them in a folder marked Claire's Dreams. Silly, maybe. But when my wife died, keeping her memory alive in Claire became my life's mission. She was only 16 when we lost Anne, and she didn't speak much that first year. So I filled the silence, paid for therapy, took her out for weekly dinners, showed up at her college with homemade lasagna when she missed home. When she got married, I gave her a blank check and said, "Build the home you've always dreamed of." She did. And 2 years later, I stood in that very home, unannounced, holding a bottle of red wine and a tin of cookies, and she looked at me like I was a solicitor. It was just before Christmas. I had flown in from Florida. Didn't tell her. Thought it'd be a surprise. I hadn't seen her in 7 months. She hadn't visited, said she was busy with work. I rang the bell expecting her to throw her arms around me. Instead, she opened the door halfway, phone pressed to her ear, whispered, "Dad, you should have called first." The house smelled like cinnamon and eucalyptus. The scent hit me harder than her words. Because Anne used to make cinnamon buns every Christmas, and Claire used to help. She let me in, tense, awkward, said I could stay in the guest room for the night, but she had early meetings tomorrow. No hug, no warmth, just distance. The real slap came the next morning. I walked downstairs. She wasn't there. A note on the counter read, "Dad, had to leave for work early. Please Venmo, $180 for last night's stay. Guest rates apply." Just like Airbnb. Blair, there was a printed invoice, with the date, the address, and a cleaning fee. A cleaning fee. I stared at that sheet of paper like it was written in another language. My name was on the deed. I built that house, paid the contractors, drove out weekly to check on the tiling, the beams, the insulation, and now I was being charged to stay in it. That afternoon, I checked into a nearby hotel. I didn't call her, didn't respond to the invoice, but I did call my lawyer. Her name's Judith. Sharp, efficient. Been with me since before Claire was born. I asked her to pull the deed records. Quietly. Judith said she'd call me back in an hour. She called in 30 minutes. "Peter, your name's not on the deed anymore." I laughed. "What are you talking about?" "She transferred the title 6 months ago. It's in her name only now. No cosign. No." That was the first twist. The first crack in the image of the daughter I thought I knew. 6 months ago. That was around the time she stopped answering my Sunday calls. I flew home to Florida. I told myself I needed space. That maybe she was stressed, or angry, or grieving Anne in her own way. But something didn't sit right. So I did what architects do. I drew a blueprint. Not of a house, but of truth. I started with her wedding photos. Looked for faces I remembered. Friends who used to visit our house during her childhood. I messaged one of them, Emily. Sweet girl, always polite. Told her I was planning something for Claire's birthday and wanted help. Emily's message came 3 hours later. "I don't talk to Claire anymore, Mr. Langston. After what she said about you, I couldn't." I stared at those words. "What she said about you?" I replied. "What did she say?" No answer. Not that night. Not the next. But the next morning my phone buzzed. A PDF file. Title: Restraining Order Request. Claire Langston v. Peter Langston. Filed. But denied. 2 years ago. The claim? That I was emotionally manipulative. That I used money to control her. That I had unstable tendencies post Anne's death. I dropped my phone. I hadn't cried in years. Not at Anne's funeral. Not during the silent birthdays after. But that morning I wept. Because Claire hadn't just distanced herself. She had rewritten me. Turned my grief into weaponry. My love into control. My silence into menace. She didn't just want space. She wanted a narrative where I was the villain. I spent the next 3 weeks reading every document I could get my hands on. Judith pulled the court records. I found emails, bank transfers, notes from her therapist, redacted but damning enough, and buried deep in her financials, something else. She wasn't living off her salary. She had refinanced the house, taken out equity. Over $400,000 gone, spent. On what? I'd find out later, but first I had to get my name back. Not on the deed, on the truth. And to do that, I needed to become quietly dangerous. I didn't raise my voice, didn't send angry texts, didn't demand answers. I hired a forensic accountant, and I started building my case brick by brick, because this wasn't just about money. This was about a daughter who turned my legacy into a ledger and charged me for the privilege of watching it burn. I bought my daughter a luxurious house, but when I came to visit, she charged me for my stay. Part 2, the therapist note, and the flip. There's something sickening about watching your child lie under oath. Even when the oath is rejected, even when the judge throws it out. It's not the legal loss that stings. It's the fact that they tried. Claire's restraining order attempt was denied, but she still signed it. Still declared I was unstable, controlling, emotionally volatile. She took the man who raised her on bedtime stories and building blocks, and rewrote him as a threat. Judith, my lawyer, was smart. She'd seen cases like this before, though rarely this personal. She didn't just skim through the document. Claire submitted. She dissected it, and she found something I missed the first time. A note from Claire's therapist, dated just before the restraining order request. It wasn't an official affidavit, just a note confirming Claire was in weekly sessions and processing unresolved childhood trauma related to parental control. There it was again. That word, control. Like the house I built, the tuition I paid, the wedding I funded, all rebranded as manipulation. I couldn't stop asking myself, was I blind? Was there something I didn't see? Or was she rewriting me to justify something else? That's where the accountant came in. Her name was Priya. Young, razor-smart, ex-IRS investigator. She started combing through Claire's refinance activity. She found the mortgage Claire had taken on the house. $700,000 total. She'd withdrawn nearly half of that in staggered amounts over 18 months. But the spending didn't match the lifestyle she claimed. No business expenses, no investments, no home upgrades. Instead, luxury resort stays in Aspen and Turks and Caicos, boutique shopping sprees across Manhattan, $20,000 transferred to an Alex M. That last one? It was recurring. Monthly, sometimes even bi-weekly. I asked Priya to dig into Alex M. She did. He was 31, a yoga instructor, ran a healing and financial freedom coaching business online. The kind of man who used words like abundance, energy exchange, and monetary alignment on his website. He had no fixed address, but he did have a sports car, registered in Claire's name. I stared at his Instagram profile for 20 minutes. He was exactly the kind of man Anne would have warned Claire about. Shirtless, preachy, parading clients in testimonials that sounded more like cult mantras than business reviews. I finally understood where the money was going. Not just into his pockets, but into the fantasy Claire was buying. That she was independent, self-made, unshackled from my legacy. But here's the twist. The fantasy wasn't real for her either. Because, according to Judith, Claire was broke. She had 3 credit cards maxed out, a loan application denied 2 months prior, and a letter from the IRS warning of a possible audit. That's when I changed the plan. Originally, I wanted to confront her privately, lay it all out, ask for the truth, maybe even forgive her. But the therapist note, the fake restraining order, the charges to my card after I left Boston? No. She wanted court. She'd hinted at it, tried to paint me as a manipulator. So I gave her court. Judith filed suit. We weren't after the house. I didn't want it back. We went for defamation and misuse of funds. Why misuse of funds? Because Claire didn't refinance the home with her income. She did it with joint assets. I transferred to her years ago through a family trust with stipulations that it was for generational investments only. She violated the terms. That made it a breach. And that meant we had standing. The lawsuit hit her desk on a Thursday morning. I didn't call. Didn't warn her. Let the silence do the talking. But the next day I got a call. Not from her, from Daniel, her husband. I hadn't heard from Daniel in a year. He was always polite, respectful, the kind of son-in-law you quietly hope will stay in the picture. He sounded off. Peter, I didn't know any of this. She didn't tell me about the refinance, about the trust, about the filing. I didn't know. He paused. She told me you wanted to be written off the house, that it was your idea. I stayed quiet. He exhaled. You could hear the heartbreak in his voice. That feeling of realizing you've been living next to a stranger. If there's anything I can do to help, I just want the truth to come out. There it was, the switch. The moment someone on her side flipped. We met at a diner 2 days later. Daniel brought his laptop. He showed me emails, texts, even voice notes, all from Claire. In one, she tells him, "My dad's money is the only thing that's ever made me feel powerful. I need to be free of that." In another, she confesses, "Alex says I have to fully let go of the past. Even if that means rewriting it." That line stuck with me. Even if that means rewriting it. That was her confession, in her own voice. Not about me, but about her intention. To turn me into the villain, so she could become the victim who rose. Judith's face lit up when I played the voice note. We don't even need to press forward on defamation anymore. This is gold. She's admitted motive. I nodded. But we pressed forward anyway. Because this wasn't just about clearing my name. This was about making her sit in the truth she buried. Claire's lawyer tried to settle. Tried to make it quiet. Confidential. They offered $80,000 and a public statement saying she was misunderstood. I declined. I didn't want a check. I wanted a record. One that couldn't be deleted, edited, or manipulated. One that would follow her. Like the invoice she left on the kitchen counter for me, except this time she'd be paying. I remember one night early in the process sitting on my back porch. Glass of scotch in my hand. Moonlight on the lawn. Crickets filling the silence. I thought about Anne. What she would have said. How she would have cried. Then I imagined her saying softly, "She made her bed, Peter. You gave her everything. Now let her lie in it." And that's when I stopped second-guessing myself. Stopped feeling guilt. Started sharpening the final knife. Because this story wasn't over. The house was just the beginning. But the courtroom, that's where everything unraveled. And the real betrayal, the one no one saw coming, was about to explode. I bought my daughter a luxurious house. But when I came to visit, she charged me for my stay. Part 3, the collapse of her castle. Some people think heartbreak is loud. That it comes with screaming shattered plates, slammed doors. But real heartbreak, the kind that hollows you out, is quiet. It comes in the form of a forwarded email, a grainy voice memo, a lawyer's phrase you can't unread. Mine came on a Tuesday morning. Subject line, pretrial disclosure, Langston V.O. Langston. It was Claire's list of witnesses, and one name stood out like a match in gasoline. Alex M., the man she was funneling money to, the man who convinced her to rewrite the past, the man who lived off coaching packages and mantras. He was going to testify against me. My hands shook as I scrolled. Her legal team had framed him as a spiritual advisor and financial independence mentor who could testify to Claire's healing journey from parental oppression. Parental oppression. I sat at my kitchen table staring at those words, thinking back to all the school projects I stayed up helping her finish. The dance recitals I left client meetings to attend. The college dorm room I painted myself because she said the school didn't allow tape on the walls. Oppression. No, she wasn't healing. She was rebranding her past to justify the present. And Alex was her poster boy. I sent the document to Judith. An hour later she called. "Peter, we have to shift strategy." I braced myself. "We're going to let Alex testify." "What?" "We're going to let him walk into court, perjure himself, and hand us everything." I didn't understand, so she explained. Alex wasn't clean. Not legally. His online coaching program? Under FTC investigation. He wasn't licensed. Not certified. And according to Priya's digging, several former clients were already filing complaints. So if he testified and claimed to be some kind of therapist or advisor under oath, he'd be committing fraud. And once we had that on the record, Claire's entire narrative would implode. I agreed, but I still couldn't shake the ache in my chest. Not because of the legal war. I could handle that. It was something else. A deeper rot. The fact that Claire had surrounded herself with opportunists. People who applauded as she tore down everything we built. And somewhere along the way, she believed them. A week before trial, something shifted. Daniel, her husband, called again. He sounded different. He asked to meet. This time, not at a diner. He invited me to their house. The house I built. I hadn't been back since the invoice incident. Pulling into the driveway felt like entering a memory warped out of shape. The landscaping was overgrown. Paint chipped on the shutters. The same marble countertop where she'd left the bill for my visit was now stained with coffee rings and unopened mail. Daniel stood in the kitchen, shoulders tense, face drawn. He didn't offer me coffee. He offered me truth. He pulled out a folder. Inside, documents, bank records, emails, from Claire's account, many involving Alex. One email hit me like a gut punch. If my dad dies soon, the trust might roll back to me fully. If not, I may have to find another angle. She'd sent it to Alex. Daniel said he found it by accident. She left her email open. He'd been watching her spiral. Said she barely spoke to him anymore, spent more time aligning with the universe than being present in her marriage. He hadn't signed a prenup, and now, he wanted out. But he also wanted to help. He agreed to testify on my behalf. It was the second switch. First Emily, then Daniel. Both people Claire thought she had in her corner. Both now done with her lies. And suddenly I realized something. She didn't just burn bridges. She salted the earth. Trial began on a Monday. Courtroom was quiet. Cold, oak benches, buzzing fluorescents. Claire walked in like she was walking a runway. High heels, tailored dress, chin up. She didn't look at me. I didn't flinch. Judith opened calmly. Laid out the case. Misuse of family trust. Fabricated abuse narrative. Weaponizing false narratives for personal gain. Claire's attorney tried to pivot. Painted me as an overbearing patriarch. Claire, as a self-liberated woman breaking cycles. Theatrical. But hollow. Then Alex took the stand. It was almost poetic. He used phrases like energy cleansing and wealth unblocking. Said he helped Claire reclaim her identity from paternal dominance. Judith let him talk. Let him dig the hole himself. Then she stood and pulled out the receipts. Screenshot of his unlicensed practice. Records of other clients filing complaints. A signed NDA from a former client who paid $10,000 and never received services. Then she asked, "Mr. Mayor, do you hold any certifications in therapy, coaching, or financial advising?" He hesitated. "Well, I operate from a place of spiritual..." "It's a yes or no, sir." "No." The courtroom went still. Then came the dagger. "Do you recall receiving $400,000 over 18 months from Miss Langston?" I can't speak to her finances." "You can, because the transfers are in your name." "Do you deny receiving these funds?" "No." Answer. "Do you know that receiving that money while representing yourself falsely constitutes fraud?" Silence. "And that any testimony today that misrepresents your credentials also constitutes perjury?" His lawyer finally interrupted. But the damage was done. Claire's face cracked. The mask she'd worn since walking in, cool, confident, in control, shattered. Because the man she tried to use as a shield had just burned her case to ash. The final blow came when Daniel testified. He didn't attack her, didn't insult her. He simply told the truth. He confirmed the email about the trust. Confirmed her intent to manipulate my death timeline. Confirmed the lies she'd told about me. The restraining order, the therapy spin, the manipulation narrative. And then he said something I'll never forget. "Peter Langston is the only man in this woman's life who ever gave without taking, and she punished him for it." Court recessed. Judith smiled. "It's over." But it wasn't. Not yet, because I had one more move. Not for revenge, for removal. We filed to reverse the house deed transfer under breach of trust. Judith had discovered a clause Claire overlooked, that the house, though gifted, could revert to the trust upon misuse, liquidation, or breach of fiduciary agreement. She had breached all three. And so the home, the one I built, was now back under the trust. Not mine, not hers. And I made sure she couldn't touch it again. Claire didn't speak to me that day. Not during recess. Not during closing arguments. Not during the ruling. She looked like a woman watching the walls of her kingdom collapse. Brick by brick. Beam by beam. And the worst part, she knew she'd done it to herself. I bought my daughter a luxurious house. But when I came to visit, she charged me for my stay. Part 4. The quiet knife of consequence. You'd think winning in court would feel like a climax. Like a standing ovation. A slammed gavel. That swell of justice swelling in your chest. But that's not how it works. Not when the person on the other side is your daughter. Not when the silence after the verdict feels heavier than the trial itself. The judge ruled decisively. Claire's defamation was willful and strategic. Her financial misuse violated the terms of the family trust. And her collaboration with an unlicensed advisor raised serious concerns about motive and credibility. She wasn't ordered to serve jail time, this wasn't criminal court. But she was hit with something worse. Public judgment. A permanent court record. A reversal of the deed. An order to repay $37,000 to the trust with interest. And a gag clause. She was barred from publicly referencing me, my name or her version of events. Essentially, Claire Langston, the daughter who tried to erase me, could no longer speak of me at all. She tried to appeal, but her legal team saw the writing on the wall. No one wanted to go down with her. Judith and I didn't celebrate. We just sat in her office, sipping coffee. She asked me how I felt. I didn't answer for a while. Then I said, I don't feel like I won. I just feel like I stopped losing. She nodded. Because she knew. 2 weeks later I went back to Boston. Not to see Claire. Not to tour the house. I went to meet with a youth housing nonprofit I'd quietly started funding through the trust. We donated the house, the one Claire had gutted with lies, to them. It would become a shelter for young fathers, men who'd lost custody, who were rebuilding, who were trying. When I walked through that same front door, something felt different. The smell of cinnamon and eucalyptus was gone, replaced by something new. Fresh paint. Clean linens. Purpose. The marble countertop, the one she left the invoice on, now had a hand-painted sign resting on it. This house is a new beginning, not for who hurt you, but for who you're becoming. I stood there for a long time, letting it settle, letting it stay, and soothe. All at once, Claire moved out a week later. Daniel filed for divorce. He sent me a message after it was finalized. Thank you. For not shouting, for not shaming, for showing me what strength looks like, even when it breaks you. I never replied. Didn't need to. Some silences say more than closure. But Claire wasn't done. The week after the move, I received an envelope. Handwritten, no return address. I knew her handwriting. Still the same tight, perfect script from the thank you card she used to leave under my pillow as a girl. Inside, a single photo. No note. Just a picture of her 5 years old sitting on my shoulders at a county fair. Cotton candy in one hand, her other hand gripping my hair. Smiling like I was the whole world. I stared at that photo for hours. Not because I missed her, but because I missed that version of her. The one who believed love wasn't a transaction. The one who didn't think invoices belonged in homes built on bedtime stories. You'd think I'd want revenge after all of this, that I'd feel triumphant. But the truth, the real revenge wasn't the deed, or the trust, or even the courtroom win. The real revenge was this: I healed. She didn't. A month later, the nonprofit invited me to the open house for the shelter. They'd already welcomed their first tenants, 2 fathers and a baby girl. When I arrived, one of the men came up to me, eyes wet. I haven't had a place to call mine in 3 years. I thought my daughter would grow up thinking I disappeared. But now, she has a room. I tuck her in every night. He didn't know the full story. Didn't know who built the house. Didn't know who gutted it. All he knew was what it became. And that was enough. As I walked out that day, I ran my fingers across the stair rail. Claire used to slide down as a girl. The one I sanded and polished myself, years ago. I whispered, not to her, but to the memory. You charged me to stay here. I gave it away, so others could come home. I bought my daughter a luxurious house. But when I came to visit, she charged me for my stay. Part 5, the silence that says everything. The last time I saw Claire in person was in the hallway outside the courtroom. She didn't look at me, didn't say a word. She just walked past. Shoulders stiff, face unreadable, as if I were a stranger who brushed against her coat on a sidewalk. But her hands trembled. I noticed that, same as they did when she was a child and had to read a poem out loud in school. There was fear there, not of me, of the truth she could no longer escape. I never reached out after that. Didn't return the photo. Didn't send birthday cards. Didn't call on holidays. Not because I was angry, but because there's a kind of peace that comes after heartbreak. A quiet you earn by no longer chasing what never wanted to be held. People ask me if I regret giving her the house. If I would go back and undo the blank check, the trust, the generosity. And the answer's simple. No. Because the gift wasn't the mistake. The mistake was believing that love, when given freely, is always remembered kindly. But some people see generosity as currency. Something to be exchanged, manipulated, weaponized. I gave her a house. She sent me an invoice. That's not on me. I still keep the photo she mailed. The one of her on my shoulders, cotton candy in hand. It's in a drawer, under a box of old receipts from the house. Plumbing work, roofing, fireplace installation. Every once in a while I take it out. Not to feel pain, but to remember that there was once a girl who looked at me like I hung the moon. I built her a house. She tried to bury me in it, but in the end, she's the one who lost her home. There was one final twist. About 6 months after the verdict, I got a call from Judith. She sounded curious, almost amused. "Peter, you're going to want to see this." She emailed me an article. Claire had launched a podcast. Reclaiming Me, Healing from Generational Control. She spoke vaguely. Never named me, of course. The gag order prevented that. But the subtext was clear. She was still spinning her version, still painting herself as the phoenix rising from ashes. No one's. And yet, her view count was in the hundreds. No sponsors. No traction. The world had moved on. The audience she wanted, the one that would validate her pain without questioning it, was gone. Because people don't rally around fabricated martyrs forever. Eventually they see through the script. That same week I was invited to speak at a fatherhood event hosted by the shelter we donated the house to. It wasn't a big crowd. Just a dozen men and their kids. No cameras. No fanfare. I told them about building. About what it means to give. And about what it costs to be the kind of man who doesn't keep score even when the world tells you to. When I finished, one of the younger dads stood up. He said, "You lost your daughter, but you gave us a home. And now our kids have someone to come back to." That was it. No check could buy that. No verdict could match that. That was the real win. I didn't become powerful by getting revenge. I became powerful by not becoming what she accused me of. I didn't scream. Didn't humiliate her. Didn't post receipts. I built my case like I built her home. Brick by brick in silence. And when it was over, I walked away. You want to know what revenge sounds like? It doesn't sound like shouting. It sounds like footsteps on hardwood you installed with your own hands. Leaving, not slamming the door. Just leaving, while they stand in the ruins they created. Holding an invoice that never meant anything to begin with. He didn't just win. He became untouchable.